So getting people to show up to class more, we text them when they don't show up or call them if we have to, but there's like a good amount, I'd say probably around like 10 to 20 people that just don't answer or like they don't answer any of the texts, any of the calls, and I can't even get in touch with them.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, so the question is about follow up to people who have no showed.
Yeah, people that are
Yeah.
already members.
Yeah. I would start with this, Dominic. If you need to make sure you always get them started off right to begin with.
Right.
And what really happens is that first 90 days is really make it or break it. If you get them started off right and get them in a habit, it's fairly easy. And if you don't get them started off right and get them in the habit, it's a problem. And early on in somebody's participation in your program, you have three crunch points, right? Crunch point number one is they come in for an introductory class of some sort, and you're trying to get them enrolled. Number two is you're trying to get them started and in the habit of attending consistently. And then number three, you're trying to shift them to a long-term goal. And whether that's a goal of getting to black belt or if it's in a more fitness context, just a long-term goal of getting and then staying in shape and making sure that they realize that when they achieve their short-term goals, they don't stay at their short-term goals and they don't keep working, towards maintaining fitness or on the fitness side for you guys. So, going all the way back to step one is when we enroll any student, we always schedule each class by appointment. So, a bad thing to do is give them a class schedule, say, come anytime you want. Or here's the class schedule, come twice a week, whatever is fine. What you want to do is in the enrollment process, they've told you, the class on Monday and Wednesday are going to be the best for my schedule. And of course, I can say, anytime you can't come Monday or Wednesday, let us know ahead of time, and we can schedule a makeup on one of the other times. You can clarify that for them. But what you want to do is the minute they enroll, is you want to schedule them for Monday, Wednesday. That's what they told you as their standing appointments. And then in the first at least 8 lessons, you treat it like an intro. You call and confirm, you greet them at the front door. Preferably, you put them into some automated system. Schedule once is one we've used a lot. We're using now Go High Level. But they get a text, they get an email, a reminder of the appointment. The appointment, the class starts at 6 o'clock, and 6:10 rolls around, they're not there. They get an outbound call where we're following up on them. Kind of step one, step two, step three, where we're treating them just like an intro. And the way I think about it is they're really an introductory student until we get them committed to train to black belt and beyond. So whatever that next renewal is. But I want to have an appointment for the 2 times a week when they're not at the class when it starts. At the early stages, I want to be on the phone to them right then. And again, uh, phone, they don't answer, leave a message, immediately text them, and then send an email. So I have that whole sequence that goes with it. But I want to be on top of it early on. So, Dominic, the first thing I see is that, especially more adult oriented schools and especially more fitness adult oriented schools, is we just kind of give them the schedule and say, come in whenever you want, rather than here's two specific appointments that we're putting on your calendar. We're going to expect you on the Monday class. We're going to expect you on the Tuesday class. And then we're going to confirm, we confirm, at least for the first 8 classes, greet them at the front door, walk them through the process, and so forth, so that we get them up and running and get them started off smooth.
Okay. Yeah, that
That
helps
makes
a lot.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the next question is the actual question you asked, which is now they haven't shown up for a week and they're not answering our phone calls, they're not answering our texts. Is one thing, and this sounds like it's going in a different direction, but it's not. You want to make sure during the introductory process and especially once they're enrolled, that they have your contact information in their phone. So they have this, in a lot of schools have we used to have line one, line two, line three when they were landlines. Now, oftentimes we have two or three mobile numbers we're using for outbound calls. I want to make sure that all of the school phone numbers, the school email address, all of the information on the school is in their phone, so in their contact. So at the very latest choke point, the minute they enroll, or the minute they come in for an intro, actually, I say, have you put our contact record in your phone? Oh, here, let me text it over. Click it, add to contacts. And what we know happens today in the era of mobile numbers is people generally don't answer phone calls from a number they don't recognize. So if we can get at the earliest stages, the minute that a lead comes in, I can get the contact record in the phone. First time I talk to them on the phone, I get the contact record on the phone. The minute they come into the school, I follow up with that. At least if we're initiating an outbound call to somebody who's not enrolled and they don't answer, it wasn't because, it could be a bill collector, it could be a cold solicitation of some sort, somebody trying to sell them extended warranty on their used car or whatever. At least they know that it's us, right? So start with that. The second thing is I think what you see with all the schools that have really good retention is they go above and beyond really early when somebody misses a meeting or misses a class. I could say. So Brandy Sullivan, Scott and Brandy in Houston, they have, and they're a national chain. I'm not sure they're in every city. They may not be in Rhode Island, but it's called Piss Cookies. And so what they were doing is they had a little local cookie shop where you can go online and you can order cookies, and they're delivered within a 2-hour window, and they're delivered piping hot out of the oven, chocolate still melting in the chocolate chip cookie. So when somebody had missed a week, they were going on to Tips Cookies and ordering, 3 cookies be delivered at their doorstep, 2 hours from now. Well, it seemed a little, pricey, right? I don't remember what it was that they have them here locally. I tried it out. Uh, but what happens is the earlier you catch somebody, the less likely they are to drop out. And, if you're paying attention, how expensive it is to generate, especially an online lead, what the cost per lead is, what the cost it is by the time you get intro, what the cost is per time you get an enrollment. So, if you're spending $400 or $500 to get a new student, and then you spend 50 or $100 on somebody to keep them from dropping out, it's a really, really good investment. It's much easier to give somebody to just heap praise, warmth, and gifts on them, and to keep them coming in than it is to lose somebody. And especially when you're at our price point. So if your average student revenue is $400 a month, and I spent $50 on somebody who's getting ready to fade out, and that kept them from fading out for 3 more months, it's well worth the investment. So what I would definitely recommend is the minute they miss a class, they're getting a call, especially early on. That implies you have the ID cards and you have Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday when they're supposed to be coming to class. It also, as soon as they've missed a week, at least a handwritten note goes out, maybe cookies or something like that. That certainly gets people's attention. But the fear is letting them go from 1 week inactive to 2 week inactive, or 2 week inactive to 3 week inactive. The further off they get, the more difficult it is to get them back in, and the more unlikely, I guess, is the other way of saying that. So I'm much better off to catch them when they're normally coming twice a week and they only came once. Then I'm much better off to catch them, when they missed a class, and I'm better off to panic to not let them go from 1 week inactive to 2 week inactive. And do keep in mind that's what we want to do. What I see again, Sebastian, probably not you guys, but what I see with a lot of adult oriented and MMA or fitness oriented owners first time they know somebody's missing is when their EFT goes bad or when their ACH goes bad, uh, or the credit card goes bad. What I want to do is I want if the Tuesday class starts and here's my roster of who's supposed to be there, I want to know somebody's missing, and I want to follow up with them right away. And then I want to, and when I'm doing the ID card, when I put them into that 1 week inactive file, I want everybody working on making sure they don't get the 2 week. And once they get to the 2 week, I want everybody panicked and not let them get to 3 weeks. Because honestly, once they're a month gone, you're much better off to spend all your time on somebody who missed the class than you are to spend time on people who've been gone a month or two. Just because the odds of success are much lower. Does that help?
Yes, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long answer, long answer to a short question. Um, but oftentimes, the point at which we're having a problem, we could have solved it several steps earlier, or at least made improvements on it several steps earlier. And makes it easier from there.
Right. And like you said, it's about like setting them up right to begin with.
Exactly. Exactly. Matt Smith, anything to add to that?
No, yeah, I think you covered that pretty good
Yeah.
because that was pretty long for that short.
Yeah. Yeah. That was pretty comprehensive.
I'm not going to
Pretty
make it any
comprehensive.
longer.
There you
Sure.
go. There you go. Any other quick
Master Oliver.
questions? Go ahead.
Master Oliver, going on that, sir, when they don't make it in for that class, is it your front desk person that is making that call, or is it automated, like a voice mail?
I would always want to have a human being calling them.
Okay.
And our routine was, and again, I mean, and this isn't, you know, this isn't a new thing with AI voice and so forth. Um, if you think back 10 years ago and you have some software tracking people and they get a super nice, warm, supposedly from a person email of, hey, we missed you in class. That's not very helpful, and it doesn't solve the problem. What I want to realize is with all of the automated tools, with student interaction, they're useful for helping you track, although I don't think we're going to get better at tracking students than the ID card. Um, so if somebody misses a class, our routine was once they're in the 1 week file, the head instructor is calling them, and or maybe it depends upon size of the school. Sometimes it was once they were in the 2 week file and the 3 week file, the head instructor is responsible for following that up. But it could be the 1 week and the missed the class. That's the receptionist, or that's the program directors. But you want a human being. I don't want it to be. I don't want to be automated. I don't. And by the way, the more these tools become prolific, the more people are going to appreciate and recognize human interaction. Right? If if there's the person who's working the front desk that they have a really good relationship with, and that's the person reaching out to them, they're going to feel great. I've seen people, especially with bigger chains, try to automate it to, a central office is calling, or a phone bank in the Philippines or something. That doesn't do much either, right? Susan at the front desk calling and saying, "Hey, we didn't see Billy today. Want to make sure everything's okay, nobody's sick. Oh no, he just had a student parent conference. Oh, okay. Do you have a copy of the class schedule? Keep in mind, let us know ahead of time, but we can always use any of the other times as a makeup. I know he normally comes on Thursday. Is that good this week? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fine. Let's see if we can make it tomorrow night or Saturday, so he doesn't fall behind. We want to make sure he gets twice. See, that's a whole different conversation than AI voice is calling, or I'm getting a text message and an email.
Okay, sir, and one more. So you send cookies. I tried that TIFFs and it works out well. If you just send like a dozen cookies, is that good or is that too little or?
Oh, I think that's plenty.
Okay.
And the Tiff's cookies were like this, weren't they?
Yeah, yes, sir, and it's like
Yeah.
it's like $20. So Yeah.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah. I think it'd be fine to send three. You know, early on it early on anyway. It's more it's food is good because it's consumable and and people, just have a visceral reaction, kind of the whole comfort food idea. But it's more of the kind of delight and surprise element, right? Is they're not expecting it. It shows up at the door, and it's in their case, if they're in your area, they're fresh and warm and and delicious and all that stuff. So it's more the surprise and delight. Now you can also make the argument if somebody is missing whatever period of time you're using, you know 3 times a month, is now not there's no surprise and delight. It might be good to have something else to throw in the mix. And don't underestimate just I've done it for 40 years. My friend Buzz Durkin always did is we just had printed cards. Vistaprint is a good source, with the school logo and graphic on the cover. And we could sit down and do a handwritten note, and put a live stamp on it. And nowadays, that's really impressive to people too. They're used to getting email and text, but, getting a handwritten note of either, hey, you're doing great in class or we miss you gets people's attention. But yeah, on student follow up, it's okay to have automated reminders of, your classes this day, this time, that kind of stuff. But, we missed you and we want you back in class, no matter how good the, AI voice or before that, how good the text messages and the email doesn't replace a human being.
thank you, sir.
And again, think about it this way, Christian. If I'm at 300 active, I mean, you're not there yet, but if I'm at 300 active and I have, a bad week, so I get 10% who weren't in for a week, that's still only 30 people. Divide by six, that's five a day. It's not, it's not that big a deal. It's not like I just went to, the state fair and I got 1,000 leads. I'm trying to follow up with 1,000 leads. I was Bob and I were just having this conversation with Dan Kennedy and someone else. I forget who it was I was talking to said it, but in describing AI voice, their point was it's better than the phone bank in the Philippines. It's not as good as your live staff member communicating with them. And I would add to that statement of it's different if it's a cold list of prospects versus it's a student, because nothing matches the head instructor reaches out and they're concerned about you. And, close second is the program director or the receptionist that you've talked to 22 times. And they always ask about the pets and ask about the little brother, sister, whatever, calling and expressing interest. You want to have that human touch.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You bet. And again, Kristen, if we could automate 100% of all this stuff, I'd be the first one to be jumping up and down. If we had the Optimus robot in front of the class and could, get rid of having, staff instructors, as Master Smith knows, I'd be the first one jumping up and down. But I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. We're when it comes to education, they want the human touch. There's going to be a lot of AI implementation for pace of academic. And, but even with that, it requires the human mentor looking over their shoulder that supports the automated stuff. But as far as, what we're doing, I don't think there's any risk of people liking automation better than they love a human being. Good. Any other questions before we move on? No? Well, that's pretty straightforward. And again, Bob was reminding everybody at the outset, but we have the live meeting It's coming up for a quick start a week from tomorrow. So Thursday, April 30th, and May 1st, Friday. Thursday, April 1st, or Thursday, April 30th will be at my home in Evergreen, Golden, Colorado. That RSVP sheet that I've posted a bunch of times has the address and all the information. We'll start about 10 o'clock. And again, if you're debating, don't debate. Universally, we know the schools that make the quickest progress, who accelerate, who ended up with the highest net profit, are the ones that are at these events. And what we hear a lot of times is, well, I don't have anybody to run the school while I'm gone. That's fine. You just text and email and post a sign and announcing classes, and preferably send them all a note that says we're going to be in Colorado doing high level staff training to learn how to be better at what we do, be better teachers, better martial artists. I've never had a student complain about that. I did lots and lots of that kind of training with my staff over the years, up to and including putting 50 people on a plane and taking them to Syracuse or Ann Arbor or Florida, or wherever it might be. As long as people don't show up at the door and that you didn't try to tell them ahead of time. So don't ever use that as your rationale. And frankly, even the finances, if you're in the mode of you're worried about, paying for the plane ticket, that's why you need to be there. Tony Robbins' terminology is if you can't, you must. But what you want to do is you want to make sure you're here, you're accelerating your progress. And Matt Smith, I think you always say that being at one of the live meetings is the equivalent of 3 to 6 months of what we're able to accomplish on Zoom. A lot of it is the the live in-person meetings. Nathan, you were just out at Scottsdale. I think you would agree. A lot of times it's the hallway conversations, it's the lunch conversations, the dinner conversations, getting to know the other schools, getting to know the school owners who are doing 5 or 10 times what you're doing and figuring out they're no smarter, no richer than you are. They just implemented a little bit better. It's extremely important to build those relationships. And we continue to look for ways to do it with the discussion forum and with the Zoom meetings. But it's really hard to have the equivalent of hallway conversations or lunch conversations by video conference or by a discussion forum. It really requires human to human, face to face, in person. So if you were already decided not to be here, change your mind to be here. If you're trying to figure out how to do it, figure it out. It's going to be well worthwhile. Um, I think the other thing people were worried about was TSA and some of that stuff. But I don't know, in and out of Denver, I've never waited for more than about 3 minutes. In and out of Denver, including just a couple of days ago, I flew to Austin. So I've had zero problems here. I can't vouch for all the other airports in the country, but I know here there's no issues whatsoever. So
When I flew out here, Master Oliver, even Dulles was the lightest traffic I've ever seen. I was going like, what's going on here? I think a lot of people thought there was going to be traffic, so they quit flying as much. But in reality, it's even less. In Denver Airport, when I landed, when you land, you can see the lines that are going in through security, and those were some of the smallest lines I've seen too. So
yeah,
that should be your least worries. That's for sure.
yeah, when I flew to Austin, it was literally I walked up and there was one person checking in front of me. I walked right through, no issues, and none of the security lines were an issue at all. So anyway, moving right along. Any other questions before we move forward?
No, just to echo what you just shared. I mean, from the very second I walked in, made connections with Jason and others, and every moment of it, it wasn't just the in classroom, it was every aspect, the meals, like you said, hey, definitely worth switching up your mind if you haven't decided.
And you're talking about
Yeah,
the last live meeting in
Right.
Scottsdale, right?
Right,
yeah,
yes, sir. Yeah,
Oh.
fabulous.
yeah. Good. Thank you, Nathan. And again, I think we've done a pretty good job screening rule number one is the no assholes policy. So when you I've walked into any number of martial arts centric environments and been besieged by egos and strutting and dick measuring contests and so forth. And I think we have none of that that goes on. Everybody is welcoming, open. Very rarely do we have anybody, who's not, especially the folks at the top are willing to share any and everything and are very generous with their time.
Yeah,
Would you agree with
absolutely.
that, Jake? Yeah.
I would agree with it. And it was like not just having this, it was like having the seminar before the seminar, after the seminar, in between the seminar, and everything was applicable and everyone was really gracious, like you're saying. So yeah,
Well,
definitely.
other than we learned not to let Greg Moody pick the restaurant.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
there's that. There is that.
I think he was very disappointed that we weren't going off of his. I'm the local. Here's all the right restaurants to go to.
Yes, sir.
We ended up preferring the ones that were dependable and not too arty, and he likes the arty ones.
Yeah, he's specialized.
There
Yeah.
you go. There you go. Well, good. Okay, let's catch up on marketing because that's our primary focus here. Who's had some really good